Ladies and gentlemen, a reading from a work in progress, Memoirs of a Swine, Volume 6, An Empty Fist. I want to say a quick word about creativity. People often ask me where mine comes from. How can I possibly write all these books? This one is my 25th. Paint all these pictures, come up with all these crazy dishes on my menu, and all the exotic ice cream flavors? Where does it come from? And I want to finally answer that question honestly. I think it comes from being full of shit. See, when I was a kid, I was a brat. I was always getting into trouble and having to lie my way out of it. I learned pretty quickly how to lie convincingly because I had a lot of practice. I learned that you need to know all kinds of details off the top of your head if you want to sell your story. You learn to build whole worlds in your head and tweak them from time to time to refine your bullshit. Then I turned 17 and blossomed. All of a sudden, girls liked me, and I was dating up to 5 at a time. I didn't feel whole unless I was in a committed relationship and cheating. And the more the better. But that meant I had to juggle all kinds of lies, be a master of deceit. You know, the kind of boy you want your daughter to date. And I got encouragement from my father because he used to brag about being a great liar, almost as good as his own father. Now there was a bullshitter, my grandfather. Old Sicilian man. My dad said that Sicilians are the best liars in the world, and the way he said it with such admiration made me think that was a good thing to be. So I excelled. I discovered that creativity is like a muscle, and it gets stronger the more you exercise it. With that kind of constant practice, I could come up with a convincing story on the spot, and even convince myself of it to pass any class examination. The problem with that, I realized when my memory came back, in prison, after my coma, is that you grow up to be a horrible person. Sometimes you can't distinguish between your own lies from the truth. The lines between fantasy and reality blur. At best, you become a bunch of masks with no face behind them. Which brings me to this, my final confession, the conclusion of my tell-all memoir. I remember writing the first book so many years ago, 1 year after the events of this book, the 6th. The next year, I wrote parts 2 and 3 at the same time, unable to wait, in such a hurry to get it all down on paper, so that maybe I could stop drinking and get a good night's sleep. And that helped. I could relax a little. 2 years later, after writing some other, more fun stories, I managed to get the 4th one written, but it was hard. I was no longer in pain. In the process, I admitted dark things about myself that, once they were out in the open, didn't bother me anymore. I was cured of the horror of being myself. I flourished as a man. I think I finally became an adult, and, being such, no longer wanted to revisit or even acknowledge that earlier me. I wanted nothing to do with him, and didn't want you, dear reader, to know he'd ever existed. There were things that happened which were too painful to face, much less share with the world, and you wouldn't want to read them anyway, would you? Nah, people don't like to read that kind of stuff. Then, 6 long years later, after becoming, I'm told, a much better writer and artist and person in general, someone told me he had been waiting impatiently for part 5. Shout out to Joe Picard. Where are you, Joe? Stand up and get your round of applause. Joe made me sit down and write what he later claimed would be my best book yet. The last one. It came at a very difficult time in my life, which makes me believe creativity is also born out of pain. And 3 months following its publication, here I am, deep into the last installment, eager to close this story for good. So here it is, the foulest of my deep dark secrets.